Hi, this is Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy. And on today's episode, we're talking about Mean Girls. Hey Habs, it's Muffy. So we're talking about Mean Girls, eh? Gosh, I think I could fill hours talking about Mean Girls. And weren't you supposed to be past Mean Girls in middle school or high school? College? But no, I have found girls are mean throughout their whole lives. And I certainly have had my run-ins with the Mean Girls, particularly recently. But even if not recently, in the not so long ago past. And I was thinking about Mean Girls and different categories of Mean Girls, actually. I have one category for old friends, like really old friends, the friends that go back to high school or college with you, to frenemies, those people who are friends but actually are more your enemy, but they want to act like your friend. And then really recently, a group of very mean girls, and I'm just going to say mean girls, at a hangout that I hang out at in the city. So let me take it in that order, and it's crazy to think about, but I have this really old friend, or I had a really old friend. One good thing about being our age, at least in my opinion, is that I don't put up with mean girls as much anymore, and I just feel free to not be involved and not stay in. This mean girl who is an old friend, I think I've been following along. I've been living on the West Coast, and so a lot of my old friends, I might just see on Facebook or, get the Christmas card or something like that. And that was true of this old friend. But when I moved back to East Coast, because I did move back, it's an opportunity to see people, these old friends, a lot more often. And I have to say, Habs, I had this whole fantasy that I was going to be reunited with these old friends, and it was all going to be kumbaya and wonderful. And, this is a person who I've been, even though we've been off on different coasts, she's married, she has kids, she's got a career. She was an important person to me in college and post-college. And so, I don't know, I just wanted to reconnect and I guess connect back to that way of being in friendship with her. Well, she reached out to me and wanted to stay at my place. Of course, that's very normal in New York City. People are always looking for friends that have places with space to stay. And she wanted her daughter to see a university around here and was going to go visit. And I was like, yes, come. And she brought her other daughter too. She's got 2 kids like you do. 2 girls, like you do. So they came. What was mean about this friend was on the eve of her coming, she asked me if M, my cat, was dead or alive. Now, I don't have kids. I have a dog and a cat. And when you don't have kids, real kids, your dog and cat are a pretty important part of your family. I don't want to put them on par with children, but they kind of become your children. And I had just been looking at her Facebook page, seeing that her daughter was, doing some high school senior game and knew all the details about it and how she was placing in her high school game. And this old friend didn't know if my cat was dead or alive. That's just darn mean. I mean, like, I thought, oh, okay, are we actually still friends, or are you just needing my place to stay? And basically, the next question was, when I did confirm that M was alive, was basically like, well, my daughter is allergic, so what are you gonna do? Like, this is my home with my cat and my dog. Like, I'm not gonna do anything, right? But the expectation that I would maybe do something. And then just when she got to town, I have to just say the whole conversation was dominated by anxiety over her elderly parents and all the millions of dollars she has, and how much she just has so much money. And like, I was sort of like, if you have so much money, why are you staying here with me and the cat your daughter's allergic to? Like, it's just mean. And, you know, across the length of 4 days, this old friend never asked why RK and I came back to the East Coast, never asked about our careers, never asked, except about, she did ask about my family, my parents, but I think that was only because she's anxious about her parents and wanted to know what I was doing. And no, I did not tell her I had gotten no contact with my parents. Like, it was just astounding to me how old friends are mean. You know, somebody had told, who's close to her, had told me, because I had seen her more recently, that this old friend of mine did not like me, and like, think that's the truth of it. Just a mean girl who is shrouded as an old friend who came to town. So yeah, no, that's one mean girl that I've run into. Another is the frenemies I was mentioning. And, you know, unfortunately, it's been hard for me throughout my life to recognize people who are friends and who are frenemies. I sort of have a big heart, and I'm always kind of generous and wanting to be helpful to people and present to people and holding them in my mind, and always, you know, doing for others and being present to others. And, you know, I wouldn't say it's the best habit. I'll say that much. And in particular, I did this for this person, E, out on the West Coast. I mean, she had actually moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and had never had any tie to that city I was in. And when she came over, she wrote me a message or something saying, "You're the only person I know in this city. You know, I hope we can be better friends." And, you know, and I was immediately like, yes, this is wonderful. You need all service providers, right? You need a doctor, you need whatever, dentist, all these things. And I was like, immediately, because I had taken so much time in my life in that city to get all of that, you know, set up for myself. I wanted to help her. I did, in fact, give her all of that stuff. And, you know, we became, I'm going to say it, we became frenemies, because she was actually just a mean person. I don't know if anyone out there or you have this idea of like people who are close to you because they want actually to tell you all their misery stories to make you miserable, or also to check in to see that you're not too happy and not doing so well so that they can feel better about themselves. And so I was always a person with E that I would just not talk about myself. So except for the bare bones of maybe a trip I was taking, or I don't know, I went to school late, so what was happening in my school, in therapy school or whatever, and I just didn't talk about myself. So that it really put it in the realm of her sort of talking about all her problems and sort of making me miserable, and also me not feeling comfortable to talk about myself or take up any space. And she's just a frenemy. When I finally, so what happened was when I sat down and told her I was moving back to the East Coast, and I just sort of said, hey, you know, I'm sure you'll have some good recommendations for me on like doctors or, you know, a dentist or service providers. She just put her fork down at that lunch and just said, no, I don't have anything help to give you. I haven't lived there in a long time, and I would have no resources to help you, period. It wasn't like, look, I know this person you can connect with. It wasn't like, hey, like I've been out of touch, but let me think about it. Nothing. It was just a flat no. But you know what? When my house sold over there, she was the first one to call up to like hear all the details. Right? Like she's one of those people. So mean girl as a friend of me, but I'll tell you something. I left that relationship. I'll just say, when I come to a place where I'm like leaving a friendship, I will just like, I get what they call a ghost, like, because I always think about it. My own wise therapist back in my 20s always said, think about, does that person have the capacity to hear anything you're going to say before you go in there? And this person had no capacity, so I'm not going to waste my breath at this time. So I just like left. We had one mutual friend on Facebook, and she was a graduate school friend of mine. She used that person to find out information about me, including where my whereabouts were on Facebook, because I had taken her off Facebook, and she stalked me at the beach. Before I moved from the one, she stalked me mind you, this beach was like an hour and a half away from where we lived. It was 8 a.m. when this stalking happened. And she kind of went through all the few graduate school friends I had, because there weren't that many older students like me, and took them all from me. But you know what? I was like, if those people, therapists in training or therapists, are going to get like between us like that, then like, what are they doing? So I didn't care. I don't care. But it was a mean girl gone whack job. I'll just say that, which is the scariest. And that brings me into my hangout, where I was, meeting new people and having the best of intentions over how I bring myself to, I think they called themselves a family, this hangout of mine. And I was doing something on behalf of the hangout and trying to, do something fun there. And you know what? Like, instead of just telling me they weren't interested in having that thing done there, they slapped me. Not officially. They didn't like really slap, but like they did slap me. Like metaphorically, they slapped me. They stonewalled me and didn't answer me when I was like wondering what's going on. And then in the end, they gaslit me after they did things. They then said, no, you were the one to do those things. You see, when you do slapping and stonewalling and gaslighting to a therapist, like, we know what those things are. It's discombobulating because you're in it and you're like, wait a second, is this actually happening? Am I being slapped and stonewalled and gaslit? But then you're like, yeah, no, I am. Like, how mean is that? And this is a group. Well, there was a boy in there too, I think, but there's girls that were making themselves known, and then girls behind those girls. I mean, this is like, by the way, this is women in their 50s. Like, and they're doing this, and I'm going to say it, shit. And it's just so mean. I mean, the best thing about that is that they just outed themselves for who they were. They weren't family, nice people, or maybe they are with each other, but they are totally like hating on me. And why they hate on me? I mean, I don't know. I think it's just me and like my creativity and maybe even my successful idea or my, big heart. I mean, these people who slap and stonewall and gaslight these girls, these mean girls, they don't have those as attributes of themselves. And they want to make it such that my spirit also gets stomped on. So mean. I am in this hangout still. But you know what I think of those mean girls at my hangout. And I do have to be very, very careful. I feel like I'm in Bridgerton where, you really have to hide like what's going on here. But yeah, mean girls exist. For me, they exist with old friends, with frenemies who've been in my recent past, and current people in my hangout. Just darn mean. And you were just telling me, Habs, that there's a Mean Girls Day October 3rd. Well, here. I mean, I think that it certainly should be its own day in the calendar year because Mean Girls exist and they exist at every stage of life, including ours.
Hey Muffy, it's Habs. I just had to start out by saying I love the first line that you led with for this episode, which was, well, I guess we're going to start talking about Mean Girls, eh? I was like, is she Canadian? I know you're not Canadian, but I know you lived in Canada. My husband is Canadian, also American, I should disclose. But he often uses that word at the end of a sentence. It makes the sentence more like a question, even though it's not a question. And I sometimes use it too, and people always go, where are you from? So it's just kind of funny. I had to chuckle and share that. October 3rd is Mean Girls Day. It's celebrated by tons of fans who loved the movie Mean Girls that came out in 2004 and starred Lindsay Lohan as Katie Heron, I believe. And the other main, guy character was Aaron Samuels. That was his name in the movie. Anyways, everybody loved him, or they were in love with him. But in class, he asked Katie, or Lindsay, what day it is. And she replies, it's October 3rd. So that's why October 3rd is officially Mean Girls Day. I agree with you. I too thought that, the concept or the idea of Mean Girls is something that you experience in grade school or high school, not as an adult and certainly not in your 50s. But I also agree that, Mean Girls exist at all ages. Every stage of your life, there's some type of mean girl. And I was trying to think about why that is, what makes a mean girl, and why, people don't move on in life and just be adults and be above it all. For me, I just don't care anymore. I don't have time for somebody who's a mean girl. It's not worth my time or my trouble. And I started to as you were talking about your various mean girls experiences, both from your college or school days to and through different stages of your life, and even now in our 50s, I was trying to wrap my brain around this concept of mean girls and then kind of the relationship with friendship and what that means. And in some ways, they're kind of interwoven because sometimes your friends, like you said, are your frenemies. And what does it mean to be a good friend? And what does it mean to be a friend who's just kind of on the surface or really doesn't have a lot of depth or meaning? I actually did look up, I just Googled what it means to be a mean girl, how they define it. And they say, at least the AI says, someone who behaves in a way that is harmful to others, often through indirect aggression. They say some of the characteristics can be manipulative, exclusive, controlling, critical, being charismatic, or at least seen as being charismatic, and alluring to their peers, but actually not being any of those things. Secretly being kind of harmful. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I do think that the concept of mean girls, when you're younger, it's kind of outright, you're a mean girl. You're doing social bullying, you're gossiping, you're spreading rumors. And as it moves through the stages of our lives, I think now in our 50s, I think mean girls, they do things much more subtly. They are not on the outside aggressive because they want people to like you. They want people, they like them. They want people to see them as some kind of leader or important person. And so it's much more subtle, So this, it's kind of indirect bullying in a way. I have had the experience of a mean girl more recently. I finally, kind of cut ties from this mean girl, through a volunteer opportunity that I had, but I was on this kind of executive committee, and the head of it was a mean girl. And so this woman, M, she has her own agenda, and she likes being in control and being a leader, but she likes inferring that she knows a lot more than anybody else, and she always alludes to it in various ways that she communicates with this executive committee, and she's always suggesting that she has like the inside scoop, and she's really involved. She actually tried to, she kind of rigged the election where she became the president again and again and again. And actually her last kind of term was this past spring, but somehow she rigged it again so that she's the president this year. So she's been engaged on this executive committee for like as long as I can remember, like maybe 10, 12 years. Like in some ways, I'm like, get a life. It's time to move on. I mean, I do my volunteer stints, but then there's a time when it ends and you move on to other things. Anyways, we were in the midst of another kind of re-election process, and she kind of almost tried to oust me, and I'm not really sure why. But then on the surface, she's very like friendly and invites me to things. And I always feel like she thinks like, oh, I'm doing a good service for Habs, by including her. You know what? I don't care. I know who she is. So yeah, I mean, I guess if we want to define it, she's a frenemy, because she's a friend, but she's really not. I stay friends on the surface and I act like I'm a friend, but I'm really not. I really know what her buttons are, and I'm very careful to make sure I play the game well with her. I mean, it's politics, right? Sometimes it's politics. But now that I'm not on the committee, because my term did end at the end of June, it's just so nice. I feel so free not to be involved in that. Now, there's another person on the committee. I didn't think I'd go off on this particular tangent, but there's another person on the committee whose name also starts with M, and we have been friends for a long time. She also has her own agenda, but she's always been very supportive, and we've kind of worked together behind the scenes. But it's interesting, she's still on the committee this year, and we connected at the start of school because sometimes we walk. I haven't heard from her since. So I'm kind of wondering, did she just use me for the purposes of this committee, or is she actually my friend? Time will tell on that one. The jury's out. But yeah, I hear you about your mean girl experience from your college friend. I think she would notice if your cat M was dead, because you would have posted it on Facebook, right? And like she would have noticed, but clearly she's not even noticing or paying attention to Facebook. Look, she's just a self-absorbed person who really only cares about herself and her own problems. She's always been that way to some extent. And, those things come out. And, like, sometimes you can be friends with those people still, and sometimes you can't, especially when you're kind of feeling like you've been used, and not in a good way. And, I think it comes out more when you realize that person doesn't actually care about you. Because, like, she didn't ask, like, why you moved to the East Coast, or what your jobs and how they were doing. I mean, I think she knows what your jobs are, but, not even really feigning any interest in you. And really, it's all about her. I have a friend who also starts with M. It's interesting. I have a lot of M's in my life, and they all play different roles. But I have a friend, M, who I am actually friends with, but she does kind of like, it's often all about her, and she's a talker, and she'll just talk. And she's interested in me. I know it, but she really just wants to talk about what's going on in her life or in town or whatever. But I also know she cares. And it's in the little things that she does care about me. So in that instance, she's not a mean girl, and I take it for what it is. I enjoy it. I value it. I have some ups and downs, but, for the most part, I know that she does care. So that's where when I say like kind of the concept of friendship versus mean girl is kind of interwoven, because I think especially in our, adult later years, we start to really discern that more and like figure out what it means and what we want in our lives, because we don't have the time for it. We have matured and we understand what we want. So yeah, and I know that you've, said like, sometimes it's harder for you because you do have a good heart. You are trusting and you go for it, but it's not you, it's them. You are a very joyful person and you want to see the joy in life and the joy in other people. And I think people can be threatened by that. And so that's unfortunate, but that's their problem, not your problem. Me, I'm a little more skeptical. Sometimes I know that I'm going to be, that I'm going to like this person and this person is special and they're going to be in my life. Other times I think they are, but then they turn out not to be. But a lesson I've learned is somebody who becomes a good friend and not a mean girl is somebody where it takes a lot of time to develop the relationship. I mean, a lot of time. And I think that's where the value in a friendship is. Mean girls, on the other hand, it doesn't. It shows its ugly head fairly quickly. But, like a friendship, I mean, you can have your ups and downs. But if you're still friends at the end of the downs, then that's a true friendship. But yeah, the mean girls, I mean, to me, they're just people that are insecure. They feel threatened. It's really all about them. And the way they take it out on people, it really is different depending on what age and what part of life you're in. So I loved hearing about your different mean girl experiences, from the hangout place to the college friend to the person in between. I mean, yeah, we all have those experiences, and they do exist and they don't go away. We'll continue to run into those experiences because there are so many people out there that feel threatened or insecure or have to make themselves important for whatever reason. I will kind of end on my most recent mean girl experience, which was my last boss, manager. Her name starts with M as well. Interesting how this theme continues on. She was horrible. She was verbally abusive, and she did it in front of people, and she was just every day of my life, I was like in jail, and she was just mean. And I've thought a lot about it, especially as we've had this conversation. Like, I think that she actually felt threatened by me. I don't know why it didn't work out. I normally get along with everyone, but nobody on the team, well, except for one person, liked me. And it was all M's doing. And she was just difficult from the beginning. Yeah, we had our troubles. We didn't communicate well. The way she interpreted me was different than the way I interpreted her. But again, I think she is a very naive person. I think she's very insecure. Yes, she does have some good qualities, but I think her, lack of experience, exposure to the world, living a very narrow life, has led to a lot of ignorance and insecurity. And I don't think that she could, look, if we were in a wrestling match, I think I'd win. I know she's in super good shape. She's younger than me by 10 years, but I think I could take her. So yeah, I mean, sometimes the mean girls, you really do hate these people because they're just so mean. But again, I'll just kind of leave the this part or my part or this thought is it's not about us. It's about them. And for me, it makes it a little bit easier to walk away and not really care. So, on that note, Muffy, I love this subject.
Hey Habs, it's Muffy. Oh my God, I want to riff on what you just said. I mean, I'm thinking about M, your last boss. And yeah, I was thinking, I think you could take her. I definitely think if I was a betting Muffy, you could definitely take her. I say that from a place of thinking about the mean girls at the hangout, and I definitely could not take them. These people, they would pound a beer and they would knock my fucking lights out. Oh, maybe that word needs to get bleeped. They would. And I would be just like on the ground and like seeing stars. Like I have no hope in that fight. In that physical fight, I have no hope. On the ground, for sure, leveled. They're not only mean, they're kind of like, they're going to give it to me. They want to give it to me, and they're going to give it to me. And, and it was interesting when you were like, I don't have time for that. I think that's part of why they would win that fight, why they would take me. Because I really don't have time for it. But I think mean girls have all the time in the world for it. Because you're right. They are people who feel threatened. And they are people who are insecure. And it is all about them. So, like, they're going to knock my lights out and then pound another beer and, like, raise their fists, like, bring it on. That's who they are. That's, like, in their blood. That is what makes themselves feel important. And I just I don't have time for it. But, what do you do when you don't have time for it, but it's still coming and knocking on your door? It's like, it always seems to find me. I think you're right. It's not something that you can really control. I am surprised that it continues to happen. When I watched Mean Girls, the movie, I never watched it when it came out with Lindsay Lohan or anything. But like after all this stuff was going on at the hangout recently, I was like, I need to watch Mean Girls. I need to see like how they got handled. So I went back to that original movie that's like 10 years old because I think the second part came out now, like this year. I had to go back and find that movie and watch it and take notes. Actually take notes on it. I always just was like, nah, there's nothing to all this. Oh my God. I was like, earlier this year, I'm like, where's that Mean Girls movie? I know there's wisdom in there. I was like, so yeah, I learned, I think, from Lindsay and the gang. There's just people just so mean. And I think you're right. It is kind of mean, indirect bullying. I think you make some good points. It's about like mean girls and friendship. I mean, I think that brings me into the frenemy, right? Like, and I was interested in some of the examples you gave of your M friends, who are, kind of, mean. Well, they are mean. The one is really mean. The other one is kind of mean or has her own agenda, but she also cares. And I think the difference probably, you're right about that, in Mean Girls versus like a friend. Mean Girls, whether they're pretending to be your friend or not, they don't care about you. They do just care about themselves. But they're using you to sort of feel something about themselves. And yeah, it has been, in my lifetime, and I'm old, it's been hard for me to discern the difference. It's interesting when you say you're a little bit more skeptical. I mean, I think that's smart. I mean, I do have a really big heart, and I think people are even threatened by my big heart. I actually mean people well. I mean, even if there is something I'm doing that's important to me, like people are important to me. Like, it's not just me and my agenda that's important. I also feel like whatever is going on in someone else's life is really important. And I care. I actually care. Even it might be a really, really close friend like you are to me, who's really family to me. But I also extend when I meet new people, like, okay, this is a good thing. You know, I want to think the best of people and be generous with people and I do have a big heart toward people. And I don't think that people kind of get that a person can actually have a good heart and an open, generous heart toward them. It kind of reminds me of the Grinch, right? Like the Grinch's heart is really small, right? And I think mean girls have small hearts. They're just small. I mean, if you think about it from a therapeutic lens, I mean, there's probably really early woundings where they just didn't have caretakers who had big hearts. And they were made to feel small. And thus, they have a small heart and a big chip on their shoulder. And they want to be mean. And they can be mean in all sorts of ways. But the bottom line is they have a small heart. And I have a large heart. And I take these hits. But it doesn't, I mean, I think they think, oh, it's going to kill off my large heart. It's not going to kill off my large heart because that's who I am. It makes me, from a therapist lens and all of my training, feel sad for people who are these mean girls. But I also have to like stand up for myself and know my own value and know my own worth. And like discerning, like that is, you are just not worth it. And one thing about me is when, you know, the frenemy goes too far, the old friend doesn't give a damn about me, or people actually really like attack me through, you know, slapping, stonewalling, gaslighting. Like, I'm not one to like hang in for too long. I'm not one to take it. Like, I will just walk. And it's funny, I think people really engage with the mean girls. And with that friend of me I talked about, like, I was with her for like several years, but it always felt like ick. But like the last straw was when she just had no sort of generous heart to be like, yeah, I want to help you. I don't know if I can, but I'd like to. When she was just like, nope, I can't help you and I'm not going to help you. I was like, screw you. Bye. And like I said, this mean girl, she just like took all these people from my grad school. I only had like a few people because I'm old. I went to grad school. And there were a few old people with me. But she took all of them. And those are fellow therapists who just like, I guess, just like felt like, okay, I need to get between them, or I need to try and get, you know, Muffy back with this person or whatever. I was really kind of surprised. But then when I think about my therapy school and looking around the classes and thinking, these people are going to be therapists, it's always like, blew my mind, actually. So I guess I wasn't that surprised, but I'm like, I'm not going to play any games. I am done. When I'm done, I'm done. And maybe that's the meanest of it all, really, is I think people engage in it. People, you know, gossip, people chat, they're in it, right? Because I think another thing is mean girls fill their time because they've got nothing else to do with themselves, but fill it in these despicable ways. They don't have anything else going on in their lives. It's just a small, dark, threatened little life. And I don't have that. So like, I'm leaving, but I've also got a big, bright life ahead of me, whatever I'm doing, that's not down in that muck. So I don't know. I mean, I think I've left a lot of mean girls behind. I don't think they care because they just want me out. But are you ever really out when you pose that much of a threat to somebody? I mean, it's a good question. I don't know. I think I stay on people's minds for a while. That's for sure. To the point where people stalk me. People are just rude. People are just like, wish me bad. It's like, do they not think I don't see it? Don't know it? I deal with it with my patients all day long and can't see it. Like, that's the funny thing. But like, I do think I leave people somewhere in their own shitty mess. I'll just say that. I don't know if I'm going to get myself bleeped out here. But anyway, when I come back to it, I think that's why my lights would be knocked out, because I see different stars. I see different things. I see bigger thoughts and ideas that are about generous spirit, big heart, seeing the best. And you'll always get knocked down by the people who are mean and just want to get you down into their hole. So I'd be knocked out. But Habs, I definitely get back up again.
Hey Muffy, it's Habs. Yeah, I definitely could take on M. And I don't know why I know that, but I just know that I could, because I think I'm scrappy. I'm scrappy. I'm a little bit of a fighter, right? And I agree with you. I don't know that you could take on the mean girls at the hangout. And not because you're not strong, because, and the song came to my mind, but you're a lover, not a fighter, right? I mean, you fight for what you believe in and what you want, and you go after things, but you're a lover. You're not a fighter, So that's why. And yeah, I get it. Part of the reason that you would just go down is because you don't have time to bother with that. And I don't either. I mean, I was just saying if it came to me, I wouldn't back down. But I would never pursue it as much as I harbor all these ideas of what I could do to this M person. I'm never going to do them. It's not worth my time. It just provides some level of satisfaction to think about it sometimes. But I do believe that the universe will give out what everyone deserves. So regardless, I think M will get what she deserves regardless of me. But that's just my kind of higher thinking on that. And maybe it's true and maybe it's not, but it's what I hope to be true, I guess. And I agree with you. I think mean girls have all the time in the world. They don't have anything to focus on. They don't have, they're bored, right? A lot of times mean girls are bored. I mean, in the movie Mean Girls, the main girl who was the beautiful one, pink, blonde hair, I forget her name, but she clearly had issues at home. Her mom always just wanted to be her friend. She didn't want to be her mom's friend. Her mom let her walk all over her. There were definitely reasons behind the whole facade of her being a mean girl. And I think it had something to do with her home situation. And that's going into a deeper direction. But I do think that a lot of these mean girl actions are a result of things that have happened to them or not happened to them, or they're bored in life. They don't know what to do with their lives. I wonder sometimes if some of these mean girls even realize they're mean. For example, the M person who I sit on the committee with, I don't know that she thinks she's mean. I honestly think she doesn't. But she is, right? So that's kind of a fascinating concept to think about. And that kind of goes to the, they don't realize they're mean. They don't really wish bad on the people they're being mean to. They don't even probably think about it. They're just being mean. I really think that their levels of thinking are not very deep, is what I'm saying. Maybe they are thinking some mean thoughts, but I think it's really just a surface thing. It's a thing to make themselves feel better, to pump themselves up. I mean, you and I talk a lot about how people don't really care about other people. They just care about what's going on in their life. And I think the same thing can be said of people who are mean girls. So, yeah, I think you do have a big heart and you do think well of everybody. And I think that's an amazing trait. And so you kind of jump in, right? Because you see someone, you see the potential of a friendship or a connection, and you go for it. I think that's amazing. I mean, sometimes me being skeptical will hold me back. great. But yeah, I mean, I think the openness, it can lean, it can kind of tend to bring in the mean girls, right? Like, because you're open, like, people just see that openness and the big heart and they take advantage. So it does kind of, knock on your door as a result of that. But that's not a bad thing. It's just, and how you handle it is, I think, the most important thing. And like you said, you tend to shut things down pretty quickly. And so you do realize, like, this isn't a good situation. I'm getting out of this. So, yeah, I think these kinds of things do kind of happen to us for various reasons because of who we are as people. I mean, I always find myself in weird situations and weird little debacles because I think I am scrappy. And so I like a good little fight. I don't know. It's, a lot of my friends will always say, only you, Habs, only you. This would only happen to you. And I don't know why. Like, how, I don't know. I get in a fight with somebody in a line at the airport or whatever. I mean, it's just like, it's part of our nature of how we let people in, I often say, like, bugs seem to fly into me. And they do. Like, I know this is not the same thing, but, like, the other day I'm driving in the car, my window's just, like, a little bit open. A bee flew into my chest. Just flew into my chest. I didn't even realize it was a bee until I looked down, and then I flinged it. I don't know where it went, and then I was afraid I was going to be, like, stung. Luckily, I was not. Another time I was riding a bike, and I had my helmet on, and a bug went into my helmet, like, into my head. Like, so, like, again, I don't know if it's my scrappiness or what it is, but, it's like it's our aura, you just have a big, kind heart, and you let people in, and like I said, sometimes they take advantage of that, for better or for worse, right? And sometimes, it's for the better, right? I always admire how much you just meet new people all the time. You're always meeting somebody new, always telling me about somebody new that you've met, and it could be on, the subway. It could be, at a museum. And so, I mean, it's just, I'm not quite so open that way. I've become more friendly, but I come from a background of being more reserved and not being reserved as a person, like personality, but not like just just reaching out to any random stranger. And so, like, that's a trait I admire about you and aspire to. And yes, you mean people well, people are important to you, and you care about them. And I think a lot of that goes to the fact that, in your younger years and as a child, you didn't feel that care so much, and maybe people didn't think well of you. And I think that you as a result, you do really care. It's very important to you to care about others, and to wish people well. And I see that all the time in all that you do, especially now that you've kind of made a strong connection with my girls. Like, you really care, and it's important to you. You just have a generous heart. I think you have a go big or go home type of spirit, and that is such an amazing thing. I had this kind of aha moment as I was listening to you, but when we were younger, I always used to think Muffy just jumps right in and goes for it, whether it be like meeting a new guy or doing a new job. And, now I get it. I get it because you just go for it. And you just look at the world with such a positive spirit, and the potential of the next new relationship, friendship, opportunity. And yeah, you get knocked down sometimes, but you get up, you get up. So they may knock you down, but you get up and you're not going to be kept down. Which reminds me of the song by Chumbawamba. Do you remember that song? I think it's called Tub Thumping. So I think the moral of this conversation is, yeah, you can knock me down, but I'm going to get up again because I'm never going to be kept down. So as cheesy as that is, I believe that we are strong women and we won't let people keep us down. We're going to keep on going. Okay, Muffy. Love you.
One last thing, Habs. I think you bring up a really good and interesting point. Do mean girls realize they're being mean? Such a great question. I don't think so, because I don't think they're really thinking. I think they just go to action. And their go to action is to be mean. But it's not something they understand as being mean because it's a natural state for them. It's the way they operate in the world. It's their way they bring themselves to the other. So no, I don't think they do know that they're being mean. I think it's just action without thinking, without understanding impact on another. It's completely selfish on their part. I don't think anyone's going around saying, am I being mean right now? They're just being mean. I just had to come back on and say that.
In the spirit of Mean Girls, we may get knocked down, but we sure as heck get up again, because we never give up. Thanks for listening to us gab about Mean Girls. They are real. For more, follow us on Instagram at Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy. Until next time.